on Phoenix and what they're doing at that particular track, because in the end, you have to be able to win at Phoenix. And they knew that. They talked about it, and it showed on the racetrack. And with all the speed that the Gibbs cars had, it was pretty apparent that they're going to be hard to beat with that new package.
Yeah, they have a very good, unique chemistry for sure. The way he just kind of keeps them calm and in tough situations,
Yes.
you can tell they have a good dynamic. But Christopher Bell was the Toyota, the Joe Gibbs driver who was able to get it done. What do you think about the performance we saw to them? Because it was pretty earned, because they had issues they were able to overcome. Yeah,
they definitely had some issues that they were able to overcome. They had some trouble on pit road and drove right back to the front every time that they got in trouble. And on the last restart there at the end of the race, I really felt like Tyler Reddick was going to follow him up through the pack, but Christopher, because Tyler actually got the better restart taken off, but he got Tyler passed a couple cars and then kind of got stuck, and Christopher was able to just keep passing cars, and he'd had a lot of practice at it throughout the day because he got put in the middle of the pack twice and got put in the middle of the pack at the end because of the fact that the stage got flipped with some strategy calls and people trying to stay out on gas, trying to bank on another caution coming. But Christopher Bell, from the time that they unloaded on the racetrack until the time that they left, had the fastest race car. Mm-hmm. It was very apparent that the 20 had the fastest race car. Now, when they started the race, he was a little slow moving through traffic, but once they made one adjustment on their car, they started going to the front, and then they put themselves in the middle, and then they go back to the front, put themselves in the middle, but Ty Gibbs did the same thing. Denny Hamlin did the same thing. Tyler Reddick, he kind of got buried at the end and made it back up to 7th. So the Toyotas in general, Christopher Bell was by far the best car, but the Toyotas in general were the best cars.
I feel like the way I watch this race now, Phoenix specifically, if you are not trying stuff, like, because you only get one really good shot at Phoenix before you have to be there for the championship. So if you're not trying stuff to figure out what might work or might not, like if you're just using it as a normal race, I feel like that's the wrong strategy. Like I'd rather miss it than kind of be there. You know what I mean? Like I'd rather to know where I'm at trying to get a Phoenix if I feel like I can win there.
So the interesting part about that was they had a tire test out there. They had 6 teams show up out there. Christopher Bell was one of those guys, but apparently they blew an engine and didn't even run this package.
Oh, really?
But he was bullet fast in everything else that they did. So they had new tire compound and construction. They had the new diffuser on the back and a taller spoiler. And it was basically a 180 of everything that we've seen all week. The Hendrick cars were not very good. The Chevys in general weren't very good. And the Fords were kind of the same as they have been, kind of middle of the road and almost worse than they probably were the weeks before. So the Toyotas, we felt like were good, but they hadn't won stages and they hadn't won races and done the things that the Chevrolet cars had done the first few weeks. But they were bad fast when the green flag dropped and were able to basically control the whole race. The 9 and the 24, they were up there at the beginning, but as soon as they lost track position, it was over for those guys. They couldn't make ground like the rest of the Toyotas could.
The Toyota that I was stoked to see running well was the Legacy Motor Club 43.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like they've just been, I mean, it's been a hard run for Legacy. They needed to get some speed and you remember like, oh yeah, like Eric Jones he's
the real deal.
He's real. He's
Eric
that guy.
Jones is I thought they had a car that could contend for a top 3 finish over the weekend. He got into kind of a racing deal with Bubba and the 14 car there, and the 14 kind of shoved the 23 up the racetrack and shoved the 43 in the fence, and that ended their day. But I really thought that the 43 car was one of the top 3 cars in practice and would contend and drove up in the front at the beginning of the race, but just how these deals go. One unfortunate circumstance. At the beginning, Carson Hocevar qualified good, bad pit stop. They go back. I felt like Martin Truex. They had a good car, and just the pit strategies just wound up being wrong for him at the end, and didn't work out for him. But I mean, he drove back up inside the top 10 after a green flag pit stop. So that tells you how fast his car was. So it's still a mixed bag though, because the Chevrolets looked good the first few weeks. Mm-hmm. The Fords were strong at Daytona and Atlanta, and just nowhere to be found at Las Vegas, except for Blaney was.
Blaney.
He's kind of the the guy carrying the flag for Ford right now. Joey Logano was absolutely horrendous at Phoenix.
He had a bad ending to a bad day.
It was a bad day.
Yeah, no kidding.
RFK cars finished up in the front of the race, but they weren't. They were 8th to 15th place cars. I felt like for most of the race, and the way that stage, that middle of that last stage flipped with the pit strategy, the way it flipped the field, they were able to capitalize on it. I felt like the guys that were mediocre could only make up ground by something like that happening. They weren't going to make up the ground like the Toyotas were, just by being able to outperform the car in front of you and move around the racetrack and do the things that they needed to do to pass.
Well, you just about covered the whole field there. Just recapped every team there. I want to go back to Christopher Bell, though, for a minute, because we were joking about the fact that he had a back and forth with Bob Pockers about not picking him for the win and stuff like that. Do you see him as an underdog, or do you see him more as a favorite? Because he has made the championship for multiple years, but it seems like he's not always right at the top of the conversation.
I think Christopher Bell, from a performance standpoint, should be one of the favorites. I think his personality and his demeanor almost take him out of those conversations, because he never really says anything that's controversial. He never goes over the top to voice his opinion on something that he doesn't like. I'm not saying that there's anything right or wrong with that. I'm just saying that I think his demeanor and the way that he approaches things is purely for racing. And he just wants to drive the car and perform with what he's supposed to do. And he doesn't want to create the chaos and excitement. And I think the media side of things, they want something that's a bigger story. But I do think that Christopher Bell has the capability to not say anything and win enough races to make you talk about him all the time. Yeah. I think he's going to win, and we're going to talk about him. There's a good possibility he could just win again, and we're going to have to keep talking about him. And it doesn't matter if he is exciting or not exciting off the racetrack, and because they have the capability to be that exciting week in and week out.
I mean, if you look at, Kaitlyn just talked about it, he's been in the Final Four twice. Mm-hmm. And, this track specifically has been an Achilles heel for them. And they were able to put it all together. But, your nickname used to be the closer.
That's right.
But I call him Mr. Clutch, because he gets it done in the most clutch moments.
He does. That's
if you
right.
think about it,
walk-off wins.
Walk-off wins to move into the next round. And he's done. So pressure doesn't bother him. But I do wish that...
Does anything bother him?
I don't know. Literally nothing. Not winning, I guess. That's the only thing.
Yes.
So I wish he just leaned in, because it doesn't take much. Just lean into... Christopher, just lean into being Mr. Clutch. Just lean into that a little bit. People would love that.
Yeah.
You just want him to show a little more personality, maybe?
Yeah, because he's got it. He's a nice guy. But, he just... To Kevin's point, if you want to ratchet up those things a little bit...
I think he's got a great personality. Yeah. And sometimes it's... Different people react different ways when they get in front of the microphone or get in front of people that they know want you to say something bad, or they want you to say something controversial. And Christopher is never going to get in the middle of that, because that's just not who he is. He's one of the best race car drivers out there. And I think he has matured through this whole process, through the years of being, if Denny Hamlin said, "Hey, I'm going to retire today," I think that he could step right in there and be the leader of Joe Gibbs Racing. And I think that they're neck and neck from a performance standpoint from the 11 and 20.
Yeah.
So that team, we talked about the fact that this race, they had some things they had to overcome. As the driver, do you feel more confident with a win like that, because it's a testament of the strength of the team to be able to work through issues and still get to victory lane?
Well, there's always going to be issues, and the better you can work with those issues and work through those issues, the more successful you're going to be. But when you have fast race cars, you know that you can work through just about anything. And that really is the key factor in, even when you look back at Jimmy Johnson. Jimmy Johnson was a great race car driver, but Jimmy Johnson couldn't have done what he did without the quality of race car that he had. No matter when they got behind, they always knew that they could catch up, because they had just that quality of race car, and they were never out of the game.
Hey, race fans, thanks for watching our video. For all NASCAR on Fox News, content, and the best clips from Fox Sports, be sure to follow and subscribe to our channel.